You transplant them into that pot there when?
When they have 3 or 4 true leaves, 4 true leaves, they're going to get 2 at a time probably. I know sometimes they say when they have 2 true leaves, but I like to let them get big enough that they're kind of strong before I start ripping them apart. Because when you put them in here and you have 5 or 6 or 7 of them in a cell, and you pull them out and you rip them apart, you know, they need to be strong.
Is this the time to call you if you want you to do the planting of the seedlings?
Yeah, if you want a lot of stuff. Yeah. I forgot to give you the rest of the soil for transplanting. It was 6 parts compost, 2 parts potting soil, 4 parts coconut fiber. I got off on the coconut fiber. 2 parts of sand, just creek sand, because that has your minerals in it and it has your pathogens in it that you're likely to run onto. And 2 parts of garden soil out of your garden. And we do this because if you have any kind of junk in your soil, any kind of weird bugs, as soon as you plant something in there out of sterile soil, it's going to croak. So we start in the transplant mix that we put in here, we put the plants in that with the garden soil in it, and if they're going to croak, they do it right away. That's why when people get them from us, usually they don't croak unless they don't take care of them. But, and then they start looking droopy, I just say, out you go. You either grow damn you or you don't get it. So, kind of mean about it. Okay, other question. I'm sorry I got back to telling you things. Everybody knows everything there is to know about growing, huh? Oh, okay.
Is this an old wives' tale where you watch mesquite bushes and when they start blooming then it's time to put your tomatoes in?
Some years it works, some years it doesn't. We had mesquites freeze.
Got cold after that, yeah.
Yeah, one year the mesquites all froze. So
yeah.
Go figure. You can't, nothing works anymore, you just have to guess.
This container right here holds up to about 150 plants. It doesn't look like it's that much, but you just put the seeds really close together because then afterwards, when you transplant them into the other, you take them all apart. And of course, you don't leave them lying around. You put them right away. So it's not like you're exposing the roots for any long period of time. And don't forget to keep them up high on something so it'll stay warm throughout the night.
Do you use discs at all? Discs instead of the, you know how they have the little discs you can buy when you usually buy those platters, they come with discs sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Are those worth using or recommend them or what?
I've used them, I didn't like them, but I mean, you know, everybody uses what they feel comfortable with. So this is not the be-all and end-all of it. There's all different kinds of ways you can do it. You just pick which way works for you, and I'm just telling you what works for me. Because different people grow different ways. Forgot to tell you about the lights, too. You have to have lights. And you can just use shop lights. You don't have to have fancy grow lights. We use just plain old shop lights from Home Depot. And I use the high spectrum lights, this highest spectrum we have. Works fine. Grow lights, if you have them, if you spent the money on them, use them. But I was too cheap to spend the money on it, so. Yeah.
You're germinating that germinating soil was from Gardener Supply?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just called germinating soil?
It's germinating mix.
Germinating mix.
They say it's the best seed starting mix you can buy, and I believe it. It really is. All it is milled up moss. That's all it is. If you want to mill up your own moss, I guess you can.
Do you use topsoil at all, the one that you can buy commercial?
No.
You don't like it at all?
No, I'm just saying I don't use it. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, yeah. Well, here's an expert over here.
When you transplant your tomatoes, you bury them back down to the leaf, or do you?
Yeah.
But you don't with your peppers, do you?
No. No, that's a good question. Tomatoes will get roots along the stem. They're hairy. And they don't know what to do. They just know that if they're underground, they make roots, and if they're above ground, they make leaves. But peppers don't do that, basically. I suppose they might. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. when you transplant tomatoes, you need to put them down to the first true leaves, bury them that deep, and they'll get more roots. When you plant into the ground, I know this has nothing to do with starting seeds, but when you plant into the ground around here, I know people have said you need to lay them down flat along the top of the soil, and I say, no, you're going to fry the roots. That works in the Midwest where they need warmth to begin with. But if you're here, you better plant them as deep as you can get them because they're going to fry otherwise. So don't do any of this Midwest stuff where you lay them down flat on the top of the ground in trenches. Other questions? Are we running out of time? I think we have.
You were mentioning the germination and light,
Yeah.
and I didn't catch. Is light always required, or
No.
you were saying that light isn't required?
There are some plants that do not require light to germinate, but once they have germinated.
Once the seed comes up, it needs light.
Yeah, and there are some things, like some of your tiny little herb seeds need light to germinate. That's why you don't cover them up. Like basil seeds, for instance, thyme. A lot of herb seeds are just tiny little things, you know. I mean, you're like going blind trying to plant them.
You don't sneeze while you're planting.
Yeah, across the whole package. Yeah, because they do require light, and that's why you don't cover it. Yeah.
The potting soil you mentioned in the transplant mix, you had said it was super starter?
Super soil. It's just it's a kind of a medium price one. Don't get some of this really cheap potting soil. If you're just going to use potting soil by itself, I don't recommend it. I recommend you put some garden soil in it at least. But if you're just going to use potting soil, don't get some of the real cheap ones because it'll set up like concrete. I tried that. So get something that's kind of medium priced. You don't need the real expensive ones with all the fertilizer and stuff in it either.
Can you make your own potting soil?
Yeah, that's what this transplant mix is. That's what we use in pots. What? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Good thing you remembered that. The lights on the plants in here, I keep them on 16 hours a day. It's expensive. But they require a lot of light too. At least 14 hours a day. At least 14 hours a day of light to grow right indoors. And in the summertime, when you got them outside, they get that much.
When do you recommend putting them outside?
Do you have the starter trays, or do we get those somewhere? I didn't hear what you said.
This?
Yeah.
These came from Gardener's Supply,
Okay.
which is gardeners.com.
Got it.
She said, when do you put your plants outside? It depends on how much work you want to do. If you put them outside, say like Marcella lives, where'd she go?
Over here.
Okay. She lives down in Superior. She puts plants out sooner than we can up here. Depends on where you live. If you put out tomato plants up here, say around the end of March or the 1st of April, you're going to have to put something around the bottom, like black plastic or something, to warm the soil around them. You're going to have to cover them up at night, and so on. So it depends on how much babysitting you want to do. But if you don't put them in, at least by that time, you're probably not going to get any tomatoes before it gets hot.
By what time?
By the end of March or the first part of April. I mean, and you're still likely to get freezing temperatures then. So. But I did talk to one guy from out at Roosevelt that was having problems, and he said he put black plastic around his and heated up the soil, and it worked really well. So, yeah. Did you say something else? Oh, you forgot what it was.
Jerry Oliver swears by the red plastic.
Yeah, I know. I've heard all kinds of things about red plastic. Some of them say that the red plastic doesn't do a darn thing, it's all in your head. And others, you know, somebody's advertising gimmick. But other people say, oh, it works, it really does work. So whatever works for you, do it. If you want to try the red plastic, buy a little bit, don't buy a great bunch, and try it. See what it works and what works. Black plastic makes more sense to me if you're trying to warm the soil, because it really will heat up faster. Okay, any other questions? I guess we're done then.
Thank you. Very nice.